Thank you so much to all of you that's tuned in today. Hashtag she owns her success. Thank you also for all the tweets and for making us train for all the right reasons, I have to say. One of the things that I've learned on this platform is that the rest of 2020 is not over. And Nonto is back with us. But I think I'm going to introduce the rest of the panel so that you can feel inspired by me and their titles. Because yes, we're owning our success today. It's time to get comfy with some powerhouse conversations as they share their experiences and share connections, making strides, breaking glass. Yes, my script says that, Nonto. We are breaking glass, as well as this. In the world of business, there are many things that are said. And earlier when I talked about barriers, I could feel like that is restricting me by just saying that mere word. This afternoon, this is not just lip service. We want you to go home, and your comments are fantastic about how you've already learned so much through this entire afternoon. But I'm bringing you our Sisterhood Success Story panel. A warm welcome to Farah Fortune, award-winning businesswoman and PR maven. It is wonderful to see you. Last year with hashtag no apology for her success. I enjoyed you so much with Cape Town and in Gauteng. It's wonderful to see you today. We're also delighted to have a young woman. When I saw your website online, I was like, I want you to take all my money and just make it grow, okay? Because other than just a broker, she's a planner, she's a business owner, and she's turned her skill that she has into a business, and I want to hear all about that. So Trudy Lutuli, financial advisor and co-founder of Lutuli Capital, is with us today. So we're going to be unpacking your money and also how to get there. And then Nonto, our fire and our energy and our brain, and sometimes my reason to just be better. You know when you have a responsibility towards that one woman that you just want to show them your kind and beautiful and nice side? Nontokozo Madonsela, you are that. I know that you're also that for Momentum Metropolitan Marketing. So thank you, ladies and ladies and ladies. In a while, Esther will be joining us. Your comments and questions that came through, we'll be having her live from San Francisco. But while we have these few minutes to unpack this, Farah, I want to start with you. Sure. There's so many people that don't know your story, and I think introduce that so that we can unpack what we want to do here. I mentioned earlier, not lip service. We've heard so much from Nonto's speech when we started out, and I'm going to ask you to rehash, for a lack of a better word, to use some of that today. But tell me your story. I've known you for 21 years, and so you know where I come from, and I know how you started, but a lot of other people don't.
Yes. I started African Star Communications as a necessity entrepreneur, to be honest with you, because there's a difference between the necessity and opportunity entrepreneurs. Necessity entrepreneur is somebody that really can't do anything else or can't seem to make any more money and needs to go and be an entrepreneur to actually do that. And I was very stuck in a role that was only going to give me so much money a month, and if I needed to progress, I had to leave the company because there was really nowhere else for me to go in the company. Right. No one else was trying to move up. So I just started African Star. I looked online at Cipro, what I needed to submit. I had like all these lists. At some point it was called Fortunate Communications.
I remember that.
Yes, and Cipro told me I couldn't have it because there was a phone shop in Durban called that. So I was like, okay. And then I was looking, and as I was reading this mail and closed it, and I looked up and the screensaver popped up on, and it was a lioness on top of this rock, and the sun was setting and there was a star above it. And I was like, African Star. That's the name. That's where I got the name from. So for me, just having a name was successful to me. I felt like I was on my journey already. But I didn't have any money. I went everywhere. No one wanted to give me a loan. Everyone said that it wouldn't work. I wouldn't make it past 3 years, including my bank. And I was just like, okay, I need to do something. I took my last salary. I was getting paid 12,000 Rand a month. And I took my last salary and I took 1,000 Rand out of it, which was all I could afford to take out of it. And I paid 589 Rand for my CC. And the rest of the money I spent, I tell the story all the time, on these really bad business cards. It's really like terrible logo, but it was mine. It was mine, and I was going to own it. And that was really my first step to success. But people always ask me, what is your definition of success? And I think everybody sitting here has a different definition. My definition for success is still, there's food in the fridge, the lights are on, there's water, my child has food, like clothes on her back.
Yeah.
That's success to me. As long as I can do that, I know I've done something in my life because my child is taken care of. Other people, it's the big houses, the cars, and you don't ever take that away from anybody because your definition of success is not the same, and what we want out of life is definitely not the same. But my success story is definitely the fact that I can go home today and know my child has food in their mouth, and that 12 years later is still my success story.
Sure. So I just want to say this too, because as women, while we are sitting here, they say they all look 19, right?
Yes.
Of course. Yes, of course we are.
So
I could wear my school uniform today. I swear they would let me.
Yeah,
actually go back to
I know
matric.
they would. I
Even
know.
grade 11.
Yeah.
Right?
Love you.
Not
Trudy.
even matric.
Yes.
See, I was hoping for a meaningful, serious conversation. No, but Nonto's son turned 15 yesterday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
how old's Layla?
She's also 15 going on 35.
We said we got to hook them up. Weren't
Yes.
we going to do a thing?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Now, and COVID interrupted
Yeah.
our plan. Okay, great.
And you're a mother of almost 3, but you're a mother of 2.
Yes.
So the reason I say that is because we mothers, we women, we entrepreneurs, we just all of it, right? And I think that's part of my success. But before we even get to anyone's stories, I want to hear about you. So I mentioned Luthuli Capital, and yes, I've stalked your profile, and it's amazing. I feel like I have a part of you because we look the same, and I can call you my sister. And I want to know, because on that picture, it says that you started out, you finished your studies, it even gives date references.
Of course.
But you're a young woman. You are
Yes.
young and successful. Tell me about your journey.
So, well, thank you for that introduction. I am starstruck right now. So I'm not going to look at you.
Look this
gonna
way.
look away.
Look at Fahrenheit.
So, yes, of course, there's dates because I wanted to be very specific in terms of how long or how quick you can do it.
Wow.
So there are people who will take 5 years. I took a year. So what? At the end of the day, it can be done. And I was talking to Nontogozo earlier that I'm not black enough, I'm not white enough, I'm just there, I am. And my success comes from understanding that it's me, you know, and I have to build myself, live with myself. And the constructs of success do not exist to me. It's about being able to sleep at night knowing that I'm me, I'm true to myself. I can't be a second version of anybody else. So I have to embrace that. So 2014, I left corporate, pregnant with the first one. I had no plan. I wasn't going to start a business. I just wanted to go home. And it was more of, I need to understand what I want, so I needed to switch off. And it didn't make sense to my manager at that time because I was fast-tracked. And to just hit the road and say, okay, done, I'm going there to the house. No income, nothing. And it did put me in a very difficult position financially and emotionally. But now I'm so grateful I went through it because I am so successful in what I'm doing now that I wouldn't have been able to start it had I not just jumped. You know, so like she mentioned, success is so different to everybody that for me, it had nothing to do with money. It had nothing to do with the house. I sold my cars. I didn't need the cars. I focused on raising the child that was coming, my marriage, myself. And that allowed me to get over shyness, get over low self-esteem, get over anxiety, depression, and become this confident entity that I've become.
Those are all points that I want to touch on today because you have just, I mean, the fact that you can say, I can focus on motherhood now, you know, it's one of the things I spoke about earlier, Nonto. Immediately we feel like, oh, you know, so I've got the baby that I really wanted. But there is a time where you go, you know what, I've just got the baby, you know. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to unpack that soon. There's people watching right now that is busy with their degrees, and both of you have now said, money, you know, it's not an issue, or that you actually just want to work on self, and self-work is important. But what if we come from households where people are saying, learn, what did you study because you worked for someone and then decided to start your own financial planning firm?
Oh, I studied commerce, not by choice.
And she laughs like, I'm like, okay.
Tell us,
No,
Judy, what
it
did you
wasn't by
actually
choice.
study?
So initially, I was planning on getting into more law and politics. And my parents told me, you're not going to get a job with that. Just go do marketing or
They
insurance or
said the
something.
same to me.
Yeah, do that, get a job, then you can do your politics and law. And within doing what they wanted me to do, I actually found something that I enjoyed. And I thank them now because they could see my gifts that I couldn't see. It led me to being able to work with people on a daily basis, help them emotionally, mentally, financially, and at no point am I saying money is not important. Like she mentioned, food, lights, clothes, that you need the tool to get, and that's the money. But how do you sleep at night if you've given your kids and your spouse that, but inside you're not happy? Then you find suicide, you find undesirable circumstances coming about, and people ask, but unamali, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And they have money. It's because internally they are poor. So you have to feed the inside first. So with what I studied, it in a long way took me to this internal investigation. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
You're right. No, I could speak to you for 20. It's like I saw my cousin, you know, and I
Yeah.
just want to ask you
Yeah.
questions about, because I can say I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah.
Nontokozo Madunsela,
Ilana.
last year, hashtag no apology for success. She was so excited. She phoned me. She was like, Lana, no apology. I was like, can I be like you? Can I wear your shoes? I want your hair, your lipstick. I just wanted to be like you. And I have no shame in saying that, because affirmations and goals and to not apologize for working on self when you're also raising a family. Tell me about your journey before I start asking questions and before this becomes a conversation. Because we joked about it earlier. Nonto has many goals, and her favorite part of the year is actually the second half of the year. So her favorite part of the year is
Yes.
after June 2020.
Yeah. So the conversation essentially was that if you are aware of yourself enough, and I think with COVID, we've had to step back, reflect, and just look at who we are, where we're at, and why we're there. In my reflection, I started connecting the dots that actually there's a lot of renewal that occurs in my life and a lot of change that tends to occur in my life in the last half of the year. And I then started, my kids are born this side of the year, moving house, buying house, selling house, moving jobs tends to happen in the last half of the year. But that coincides with the fact that, as Momentum we've said, we've got 2020 isn't over until we decide it's over. And absolutely COVID has taken all of us by surprise. There's a lot of pain, a lot of loss, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of economic poverty that's coming as a consequence of COVID. The game, however, is not over, and a lot of us have pivoted in many ways and found things like even, our CEO was saying he learned to bake in COVID. I've been doing a lot of painting with my children, doing a lot of writing on journaling. I know Farah went through a whole experience with her hair and experimented with her hair. That fills and fuels my cup, and we can't rely on external circumstances anymore because we're realizing those are out of our control. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before hashtag no apology to success started.
Yeah.
And you had this idea and you involved all of us.
Yeah.
And today I'm so proud there's a control room with people and they're wearing masks, and we are trying to bring cheer and show as momentum that the rest of 2020 is not over. When you started hashtag no apology for success, how did you know that owning success would be a lifesaver? How did you know that this is the message that you want to share with it? Because I can tell you one thing now. If I didn't start hashtag, if I wasn't part of that campaign last year, I would have not have had momentum
That you
through
got.
COVID and
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And so there's someone who's perhaps lost their business or in a really terrible situation that perhaps wants to take last year's hashtag no apology for success
yeah.
and take it on And also journey to no apology to
Owning.
she owns her
Owns,
success. Yeah.
So, I mean, most of the work, and I think people in the industry will understand that most of the work starts with you understanding people and having a human truth. And you know, like the usual saying of, you know, keep your ear on the ground. So we, as a team, keep our ear on the ground. And we wouldn't have had this powerful campaign had it not been for understanding what success is and how women lack their confidence in their success journey, and especially in comparison to the men counterpart. I mean, Trudy and I were chatting, and in her journey, there are things that she doesn't feel she's ready to do, and I'm like, come on, channel your husband, Trudy. The guys do this all the time. How many times you're like, how did you get that gig when I'm more qualified to get the gig than you? But it just feels as women, we are always thinking just let me walk another kilometer, then I'll be fit enough. Let me answer the next 10 calls, then I'll be professional enough. Let me do one more presentation and if my boss didn't say, high five, Farah, you did great, then maybe I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And I think also women are too grateful for opportunities sometimes, which is, I don't know what's the right English to say that? But there's almost like, hey, I'm so thankful. Thank you for looking my way. But guys, they're like, yeah, and what else? Yeah, and what else? I mean, in a year, what are we doing? Dude, let's play golf and talk about the next year. But we're like, I've just had my baby, you know. I haven't, I've been living half day because I need to breastfeed. I'm not ready for a promotion. Meanwhile, you are in your half day. You are the most effective, efficient employee, even as you breastfeed, and you still need to work half day.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't you be ready?
Yeah. Farah, take me to a low and a high. I want to know your lowest low.
My lowest low.
Your lowest low, because I know your highest high. I know your lowest low, but the reason I say this is because I know that our director is going to cut this conversation soon because Esther's logging in from San Francisco.
Okay, yes.
And what I want someone to go home motivated, because I love how you're saying, you are ready. Even if you think you're not ready. You are ready.
We're going to start the church and get
we're
Trudy
gonna
to
be
sit
like,
down.
yes,
We're going to get Trudy in the church and like, sit, are you ready for this?
There have been so many lows, and even 12 years later, I still have lows. The lows are just different. A low of what would be my low 12 years ago and what would be my low 5 years ago and what my low is now is so different. It's just like your goals. Your goals change every time. You want to achieve to be on the panel sitting here today. Okay, I've done this. Now what's next? We always have another goal. We always have something else we want to, as humans, we want to look forward to. So I'd say my lowest lows, I've had so many. I mean, so many days I've gone home and I've cried, and people look at you and they say, "Oh, you're such a strong woman." I don't want to be your strong woman. I don't want to. Why should I? Why must I take on everybody's stuff just to be a strong woman for you? That's not fair. I'm also human. I also take things on. I also have emotions. So some days, I'd go home and I'd sit and I'd literally cry in my bedroom because I need to let that out. I need to understand. I need to process things. Some days I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're not getting work. Some days I'm struggling to pay suppliers, to pay employees. There are days I struggle. And then there's other days where I'm like, oh, great, everything's fine. There's nothing that could go wrong. And then SARS sends you a bill. It's those kind of days. And I literally take every day as it comes because as a woman living in South Africa, I'm very grateful I wake up every morning. And I take that into account. But just in my low times, what I've really understood about myself is that we all process our low points differently.
Yeah.
Some people, they go and they talk about it. Some people, they need to internalize and then talk about it. Some people just internalize and then don't even get therapy. And I think that's the kind of things we need to look at as women. You don't have to be strong for anyone. You don't owe anyone being strong. Your success shouldn't be aligned with you being of how much rubbish you can take from someone.
Amen.
And I think that's what we need to understand about being vulnerable, about having a low day and also about having a high day. It's great to be out there, and these are my success stories. But the days that I'm at home and I'm sitting, like pulling up in the car, and I'm literally sitting in there for an hour crying because I need to get it out before I walk into the house so that my daughter doesn't feel any of this. And then she walks out and she's like, I seen you driving here 30 minutes ago. Why are you sitting in the car? And it's made me realize that I need to have these discussions with her as a young woman as well, so that she doesn't think she needs to internalize everything as well, because we were brought up like that. We were brought up to take it all in and make sure that we kept everything together. And I refuse to live like that anymore because it's not fair. So if I'm going to be an example to anybody, I don't want to be anyone's role model. I want to be my daughter's role model. We all need to bring our kids up by ourselves. I want to be my daughter's role model enough to know that if she's having a bad day, have a bad day. Don't live in that bad day forever, but have a bad day. And then tomorrow, you wake up. I'll give you a perfect example quickly. Last week, Monday. I don't know why. I know it was a public holiday, but I just wasn't feeling good about me, how I looked, how I felt, everything, and I just didn't do anything. I sat at home, even though I had emails, I did nothing. And I sulked. Tuesday, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I sat till 7:30 and I finished absolutely everything I needed to do because I needed that day. I needed that day to sulk. The Tuesday, I realized I needed to work. And I think those are the days we need to give ourselves, because those are the success stories. My success story is I got out of bed and I worked. Some people don't make that. So every little thing your success is dependent on how you feel, and your low points is as bad as how quickly you get out of it.
Absolutely.
Well, I love your micro win idea, like every little bit is a success. And also the fact that you can get up. And that's one thing that I want to talk about while we're waiting for our guests to log on. The one thing that I want to unpack is self-work. And you mentioned a word that I am so glad we are speaking about when we talk about success and our achievements, and that is mental health. Nontokozo earlier called it her mental diet, so I can't wait to touch on that. I can't wait to touch on that in a bit. But if you just join us, hashtag she owns her success. We all own our success. And yes, if you want to follow that other conversation, it's hashtag no apology for her success. Esther Wachitsky joined us earlier today, and she is just remarkable as a leader. I mentioned to you earlier as well that some of her achievements includes the fact that she has raised successful daughters and also been a leader in Silicon Valley, being a mentor to people like Steve Jobs. And today we have the privilege of having her back. So we're just waiting for her to come on so that we can continue our Sisterhood success discussion. Also, you posted some of your questions and comments, so now is the time that we will actually be going through it. And I must say, Nontokozo, some of you already started answering it as well. While we're waiting for her to join us, I see that our technical team is trying to get her back. You mentioned something that just caught my attention. Nontokozo talked about our mental health. Hello, Esther. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with all of you.
Thank you, thank you. So just to give you an idea and bring you up to speed, earlier we chatted about our sisterhood. We've got our three sisters in the house, okay? They've been inspiring us. So we've got Nontokozo, our lead in marketing for Metropolitan Momentum, and we've got Farah Fortune here with us, and we've got Latudia here with us. So we've been having an amazing discussion. We also enjoyed your keynote address earlier and talking about your daughters. That was really insightful. And we have so many questions and comments from people, so we want to unpack that. So, Esther, are you ready?
I'm ready, yes, thank you.
I should probably tell you I am. I'm Ilana. Hi.
Hi, Alana.
Okay. So, I mean, we were just talking about success and how to get there. And one of the things we pointed out is that all of us are mothers, right? One of the questions that also came through in this is, how are you a mom trying to be successful without the guilt of having little ones, because you're trying to make ends meet and you're trying to be a successful leader? What advice would you give to the person who asked this question, and also all of us unpacking the fact that we are parents together with the fact that we are business owners?
Well, one thing you need to remember, and we sort of forget about it, but it's very important, in that we are models for our children. And the way that we interact and the way that we behave with regard to the problems that we face, those kids watch and they follow what you're doing. So the most effective thing you can do is not to worry about them, but to deal in an effective way with whatever you're facing, because they'll see you doing that. They'll see you trying to manage 5 different things at the same time, which is what I did and what all these other people that I know did. I mean, it's impossible to be perfect, but what is possible is the way that you react to the situations that you face. And I mean, I know for a fact for myself that you can get really upset and then you can't think well. And you can also get upset, but then somehow realize that you are in control. You are in control of yourself. You might not be in control of what's happening, but you're in control of your behavior and what is happening to you. So the best is for you to just model that behavior for your children, and then they will follow that behavior that you have. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on what was said earlier on we own our success. I think what we do with little girls, our children, is that we innately, and it's because the way we were brought up, train them to be pleasers, to be the ones that are going to make the compromise, the ones that are going to do things to help you. We somehow build that in to their early learning, and so we need to probably rethink that and perhaps be a little bit more realistic in that we don't want little girls to always just be pleasers. We want them to have their own mind and to be intellectual and to think about things they care about. So hopefully that explains some of the answer that I was getting across.
Esther, now our panel have their own set of questions for you as well. I know that Nonto wants to ask a few questions. Just heading to more of the questions that we had on our SMS line this afternoon. What are some of the habits that have contributed to your success today? Now, I mean, you touched on it earlier. You said some amazing things that has just come up as well. Trudy also referred to it earlier about honesty and about how you raise your children. The fact that you, that one habit that you mentioned about risk, that you need to risk things and then accept the fact that you might fail, but that you just get up again and risk again. Oh dear, So, what are some of the habits that we can adapt and that has contributed to your success today?
You hit on it. Excuse me. That's the number one thing, and that's what I did in my classroom. That's what I did with my children. Is that when you take a risk, first of all, you're innovative because most risk taking is different. We're doing something that people haven't done. And you may fail. As a matter of fact, probably the most important thing is you do fail. But then you have to get up and do it again. And you will get it right. You just have to believe in yourself. And don't get diverted. And the way that people get diverted is that they try something new that could possibly work, but maybe it doesn't. And then they get really upset. They get upset with themselves. And as I said, I think in my talk, the first person that you need to forgive if there's any kind of failure is yourself. You yourself, you have to take really good care of yourself and say, okay, this didn't work out this time, and I'm going to do it right now again. And that's what I did with my daughters. And that's basically what I've done with all my students. And they all say that. And I included in the training in my classes what I called mastery learning. And mastery learning is you don't get a grade until you get it right. And whatever it is you're doing, you get to do it repeatedly until you get it right. So I think, no one gets it right the first time. Somehow we have this erroneous thought that in school you're supposed to get it right on the first time and you get an A and then you go to the next thing. I don't know anybody that gets it right on the first time. And that's why there's so much cheating out there.
Wow. Okay, Nontokozo's got a question for you.
Well, first I must say, the thought of no one gets it right the first time
Yeah.
has made me feel better about being divorced. Because I'm like, hey, sometimes you get married and you never get it right the first time. So thank you for that. I'm keeping it in my journal. But the question I have for you actually linked to marriage, which I failed at. Going to therapy is fine.
That's
So
fine. You
the question
will get it
is,
right.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'll get it right, definitely. So the question I have is, you spoke about what happens at home, and you spoke about the relationship, parent-child relationship, and how you kind of helped your daughters grow up in the way that they had their confidence, not afraid of risks, etc. I'm not sure if any of your daughters are in relationships, married, with partners, but how we show up at work is very connected to relationship dynamics in our mature age or adult age. So what have you learned about interacting on that level, and how that either is a barrier or facilitates success in a relationship space at home?
So this model that I put up, this trick, which I talked about in my talk, it works in your personal relationship. And you just need to think about it. I mean, when you first get married, it's like, oh, everything is perfect. Oh my God, this person is like, oh, I'm so excited and whatever. And then the first thing that happens when a relation disintegrates is you lose respect. Respect is the first thing that goes. And you're like, oh, they did it all wrong. And, how did I make this mistake and marry this person or whatever? And then when respect goes, trust goes. So you stop trusting them. You stop giving them independence. You start like, oh, where were you? What were you doing? I don't know. I'm not sure I believe you. And then collaboration disappears. And there's no collaboration. People just trust like, oh, let me tell you what to do. You have to follow what I say or else. And then there's no kindness. So the whole thing basically is tied to respect. And respect is really listening to another person and making sure that you understand what it is that they're trying to do and giving them a chance to, quote, recover from whatever it was that they did that might not have worked out. I think patience is also really important. Let's just think about it. Why is respect so important? One of the reasons people want to buy those T-shirts with that little horse on it is not because they like to pay $100 for a T-shirt, but because that says you need to respect me. I'm so smart, and so I was able to pay this money for my T-shirt. I think that we need to remember that everybody has wonderful gifts. They also all have defects. They all have problems, but overall, human beings are really incredible. And if you give them that opportunity, and if you respect them, they will rise to those expectations. That's what I found out about in my classes. I could take kids who had failed all for 9 years prior to coming to my class in the 10th grade. And the fact that I believed in them, cared about them, made the difference. These kids, all of a sudden, who somehow couldn't read before, they're like, could read. And people are like, well, why did that happen?
Yeah.
It's because suddenly I respected them and they respected themselves and their abilities. So it really works in interpersonal relationships and works in all areas of life.
Yeah, thank you.
So Farah has a
Hopefully that
question for
makes
you too,
sense.
Esther. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
it
Thank
did.
you.
It did. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Farah, what's your question to Esther?
Hi, Esther. So I have a broke best friend that lives in my house, and she's 15. I call her my daughter. And you know, so much of African culture, and I'm sure even just generally around the world, we brought up to learn to, you know, we respect our elders, no matter what they say, whether they're right or wrong, we have to respect them. And I don't really bring my daughter up like that, because I bring her up to question authority, to question even me. That if I'm wrong, she needs to tell me, okay, mommy, you're wrong, and this is why I believe you're wrong. Because I never grew up in a household like that. We were taught to listen to our parents no matter what happened. So sometimes I find the balance between listening to me and listening to her doesn't always balance. So you have two daughters. I have
I have
one that
three.
I'm sure. Oh, you have three? I don't even know how you do that. One is enough. So I struggle sometimes, and I wanted to know, how do you find the balance between that, or, you know, trying to give them the freedom that they deserve, but also making sure that, you know, I've been through this, because I think my daughter thinks I was just born a parent. I don't think she realizes at some point I was also 15. But I think, you know, we need to come to that balance. How do you handle that, or how did you handle that with your daughters?
You know, that's a great question. And I want you to know that all kids think that their parents were always like that. You know, they think they don't ever think their parents were little kids. They somehow, it's crazy. And I just remember, you know, in teachers, kids in the class, they don't realize you're a human being. And really, you know, if you see them in a store, a lot of kids are like, oh my God, you go shopping too? You know? I thought you just lived in the classroom, you know? Oh, you don't do anything else. You just have to remember, you know, that kids, you have to remind kids, you might want to show them pictures of yourself when you were little. You know, oh yeah, I did this when I was little. Yes, that's really me when I was little. And so you want your kids to respect you, but the main thing that you can do to respect them is just listen. But they need to know that listening is the first step in respecting. Just hearing, it doesn't mean you have to follow what they say. Because I'm also like you know, I challenge authority all the time. I wouldn't have gotten my kids to where they are if I would have just said, oh yes, follow the rules. You, a lot of these rules don't make sense. I mean, why would you want to follow a rule that doesn't make any sense? And so you want to teach them first to listen, and then to say, well, I've heard you, but I'm living in a different age, I'm a different person, and I want to do it in the way that works best for me and my generation. That's what I think they need to do.
Thanks for that.
Esther, we're heading to more of our questions that we had from everyone watching you earlier, and I want to combine these two questions. I was just told by the gods here in our studio that we're almost running out of time, but I had two really important questions. The one talks about this. The one says, how do you fit in a male-dominated environment? Do you change yourself in order to fit in? And then the other one says the following. She says, I have a fear of being replaced if I share my knowledge or opinion. How do we as women change that mindset amongst ourselves? And you know what I thought of, but in particular, I thought of your one daughter who is the CEO of, I think, YouTube. And I'm thinking, oh my word, like, first of all, she's got a job that most of us can only dream of. But how do you not become rough and male like, can I say that?
Yeah.
In such a macho position?
Well, so I think women, one thing that is really important, women bring a sense of caring to the job. And while you still might be firm about your decisions and still might be very, quote, male-like in your decisions, again, you are caring and you hear and you listen. I think one of the problems with a lot of people is they refuse to listen, and they're only thinking about themselves. I think it's really a tough job that she's doing because there's nobody to follow. There's no path forward. So she has to believe in herself and believe in the goodness of humanity. which is basically what she does. And she believes that, in fact, most people want to be good and want to do things in this world that is going to make the world better. If you just look around in this pandemic now, so many people are helping each other. And I think that that's an illustration that we can work together. We, of course, in the United States here, we have chaos, as we all know. And it's like, but at the leadership part, we have somebody there that's trying to pit us one against the other. But in spite of all this, I think it's important to realize women shouldn't get diverted by any kind of like sexual harassment. I know it's tough, but you just have to keep your eye on the goal, keep your eye on the ball. Don't let any kind of outside influence divert you from whatever it is that your goal is. And that's what I taught to my daughters, and actually to my students too. And that's what I'm trying to bring forth in my book and for everyone.
Esther, it has been a joy speaking to you. Esther Wojcicki, if you want to follow her book, and all of her amazing conversations. I think you did a good job with your daughters.
It was just a tad, okay?
Yeah,
Just
okay. She did
Pass
well.
that along. I'll tell them.
Esther, have a good afternoon. We're gonna wrap things up this side. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
A pleasure. Thank you so much, and wishing you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hashtag she owns a success. How amazing, right?
Definitely.
Imagine you
Beautiful.
can say that.
Yeah.
Nonto, I know that we need to wrap and we need to do lots of other things, but I'm just so inspired by our South African representatives that are here. And I want you to please encourage people watching based on what Esther has said and everyone on the Sisterhood panel even. If there's one nugget you can send someone home with regarding mental health, depression, bipolar, speaking out, being able to own your feelings, because we've all journeyed in some form of way. I met an expert that said no one can say that they haven't been affected by COVID mentally. Basta, So if there's one nugget you can give anyone who's watching this afternoon, what would it be?
Sure. It would be, if your reference point needs to be external, you are not okay. So when you are alone and you can't be within, you are not okay.
Okay.
Because the problem is within. The pain, the sadness, the anxiety, if that is what dwells within, you are not okay. So most of us are busy on social media with the TV, Netflix, so we don't have the time to look within. You need to put that time, even if it's 5 minutes, in silence, all by yourself. Lock yourself in the toilet if you need to. If you can't deal with being alone with yourself, you are not okay. So I can't say it's depression, it's bipolar, it's whatever. But once you hit that point where you're like, I can't deal with this, you need to ask for help.
And that's the journey of self-work,
Yeah.
right? Something that Nonto and I... Nonto, if you can give everyone who's watching a conclusion based on your journey with affirmations and about owning your success. I mean, the things you speak, I love having you as my sister, because I can call you up and tell you anything, and you can always see the good and motivation in that. I don't know why I'm emotional. I'm actually starting to cry. But
You're sitting next to another
I
crier.
know, we are
Like from here, Farah.
And then-
Full proofs,
and then
right?
they
We
social
could
distance
decide.
us, so we can't even like cry together. But
I did say,
You're sitting next to
no
a crier.
tears.
Oh my God, stop
If they're
it.
gonna cry.
Yes, sis.
Now I must
Farah.
watch you all cry.
Like build
know,
up the
I'm
wall,
sorry.
Farah. Keep the kids. Okay, we're gonna. I mean,
no, if there's one thing that you listen, before this we talked about Botox.
yes,
and
I know,
flab, okay?
I know. We talked about it. Okay, cool.
If there's one thing you can send, because that's part of self-work, right?
yeah.
Affirmations and how to raise daughters. I mean, she just said it. What would it be?
The one thing I want to say, guys, is this is, the calendar year, ne? COVID or no COVID, 12 months. There's September, there's October, there's November, there's all of December. Remember that. A lot can change in the next week, in the next day, in the next hour, when you go to bed tonight. And for me, affirmations, even as I shower, I'm like just gratitude as you shower, gratitude as you brush your teeth, gratitude as you get in your car and drive. September, October, November, December. No excuses.
Farah Fortune, it's wonderful knowing you for 21 years. What do you want to say to all our women watching?
I actually want to touch on you just being emotional right now. I think what we are, women are seen as when they're emotional that they're weak. And I don't think people realize that as those emotions are just part of us and who we are, and that's how we express love to each other. And I think that brings me back to my point of the one thing that's going to truly make us successful as women is one thing it took me really long to learn and took me even longer to unlearn is my not liking other women. It took me really long to understand that another woman walking into a room, she's not my enemy. I don't even know her name, but I'm looking her up and down and I don't like her, or I don't like what she wears, or I hear something about her and I believe it. And it took me so long to unlearn all of those things that were indoctrinated into me in school, in uni, in my workplace, having to backstab another woman to get to where I want to be. And that was really who I was as a person, and that was somebody I'm really glad I'm no longer, because it's allowed me to be this person now and help other women. And therefore I can understand when you get emotional, because being happy for someone else's success, specifically women, is something that, you just feel so good inside about it. And I think when you realize how good it makes you feel, you want to continuously keep doing it.
Yeah,
so I think as
absolutely.
women, for me, I think we need to understand that our job is to unlearn all the things we've been taught about not liking each other, which is the one thing which is stopping us from actually being successful.
Yeah. So true. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
that's gospel.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks, ladies.
Well, you are all remarkable, and hashtag she owns her success. Ladies and ladies, it has been a pleasure, and what a special afternoon. Momentum, thank you for allowing us to hashtag own our success and become Momentum in this safe space, chatting, speaking, collaborating, immersing ourselves in an interactive experience. It has been absolutely outstanding.